What's up? This is Parker Jameson from the band Starkill.
Hey, this is Tim Ripper Owens.
This is Brittany Slays from Unleash the Archers.
Hey guys, this is Stu from Death Dealer.
This is Vicky Sarakis from The Agonist, and you're listening to the Great Metal Debate Podcast.
Hey podcast listeners, welcome back to the show for another metal artist interview. I'm so pleased to be joined by Simon from Canadian metal veterans Order of Chaos. Simon, thanks so much for coming on The Great Metal Debate.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Now, I've been a fan of you all since the release of 2011's Burn These Dreams, but for folks who aren't familiar with the Order of Chaos, can you give us a thumbnail sketch of how the band came to be?
I started the band when I was in university. Like 2004, I believe. I used to just play Metallica and Megadeth covers for fun, and I had a whole bunch of gaps in between classes at university, and so I used to bring my guitar to school and started just kind of writing my own music, and thought, hey, it'd be pretty cool to do this with an ensemble of members rather than by myself in my car in the cafeteria or whatever at school. So started with that, and then ended up meeting some people who are now some of my best friends in the world, just by chance, and started jamming with them. And here we are, like 16 years later, I guess, from the initial inception, quote unquote.
And so, was there a particular sound you had in mind that you were trying to create when you first got together and began jamming with those friends?
Not really. I think the sound, sort of evolved, both as, I improved as a musician, and then, other people that were involved in the writing process evolved as musicians. And, it also kind of matures with your own listening or taste in the kind of music you listen to as well. But there was no, premeditated way to sound or anything like that. And, in some cases, in the business side of things, that can be detrimental, right? Because it makes it hard for labels to market you, and you don't have a sound that sounds like anything. But, we always maintained that we wanted to sound unique without trying to, force ourselves to sound unique, if that makes sense. Just to write music from the heart with riffs we all thought were good. And, if that fits, the Order of Chaos profile, then great. But as you can see on Burn These Dreams, you've got, one song, Guns in Order is a perfect example. Amanda hates that song, but it's sort of a bluesy rock thing. We wrote it as a joke, right? We just said, what the hell, put it on the album. And then, you've got Burn These Dreams and Chaos in Cairo, which are like, the polar opposite of that song. So that's kind of what the Order of Chaos has always been about, just not having any limits to what we sound like or, what we put out there. And
was there a particular artist that inspired you to pick up the guitar, or did that come from a family member, or what got you going in that musical direction?
I'm old enough, Guns N' Roses was, for me as a kid, watching GNR videos on Much Music back in the day, and Slash's solos, probably the first thing that inspired me. I think I heard Appetite for Destruction. I was like 8 years old, and was floored from there. And I think you can hear some of that in my soloing a little bit, maybe. Then from there it spiraled into, Metallica, and my aunt gave me Injustice for All, and it had Slick Toxic as a B-side, I think. And then Megadeth. I had a friend literally in grade 6 who had So Far So Good So What and Rust in Peace on tape, I think it was. And we would just, play video games and listen to Megadeth in grade 6, grade 7. And so, from there, Pantera, we found Ozzy. Then you start to go back and find Maiden and Sabbath and, some of the forefathers of Shred. that kind of evolved later in my 20s into, more extreme stuff. European scene started to have more influences, social media and the internet came too. We started to become aware of all these crazy Finnish bands like, Children of Bodom and Nightwish and Snot Arctica and it's Dimmu Borgir. And, then it spiraled into extreme death metal like Necrophagist. I mean, it all began with Guns N' Roses.
Well, cheers to your metal and to set you in part down the path. Oh, that's awesome that you had a family member who encouraged you in that way.
Yeah, my aunt was a harsh headbanger.
That's great. Now, you guys have shared the stage with some big names in the past, including tours of Europe with Hellstar and Battle Beast. What have those experiences been like, and have they shaped your musical direction at all?
Those experiences were amazing. Just learned so much about the industry and what it takes. And, it was an opportunity to see the world from a perspective that the average person, wouldn't get to going on holidays, which was great. As far as the musical side of things, I think, it could have influenced how we started to focus on music just in terms of how we saw the crowds respond to certain songs of the headliners. And really good headliners are great at creating, movement not only in their songs, but in the set list, right? You've got highs and lows and they're deliberately placed there for an effect on the audience. So you start to become conscious of that. And then, it does translate when you're writing music. You're trying to think about what would give the listener the most enjoyable live experience and trying to balance that obviously with your own taste and freedom of expression. You learn how to drink when you party with the Finns, like Battle Beast. You learn how to hold your liquor down. That's for sure.
Yeah, we've had those folks on the podcast. They're awesome folks. And what about the experience in Europe? Compare, if you would, the European metal fans and scene to what we have over in North America.
Maybe a little more diehard, and not in the sense that they, like metal more than anyone else. It's more, I haven't seen too often in North America where there's, people that I've never met or am not connected on Facebook show up, as the bus is arriving or the van's arriving, and they've got, your childhood hockey photo printed and they want you to sign it, or, it's little nuances like that. I think, the people love metal across the world, and everywhere you go, the audiences are all amazing in their unique way. I think in Europe there's more of an establishment around touring. Obviously it helps that the cities aren't so far apart and it's much more populated, which the market is obviously a little bit better from a cost effectiveness standpoint. But there's a system or an infrastructure where you get to the next town, the venues have showers and there's catering and there's all the facilities to make the band feel at home. Whereas North America, depending on the size of tour you're doing, you may be sleeping in the van and going to McDonald's for days on end, and that infrastructure is not really there to support the touring acts as much. Also, the distances of travel is pretty in Canada especially is extreme. I mean, just to get to Vancouver from Edmonton, where we live, is 12 hours if there's not a snowstorm. So there's good and bad to both, but the fans are the same. They're all passionate everywhere you go.
That's awesome. Now, the Order of Chaos has a new album coming out entitled Maniacal. How long has the material for this album been in the works?
I think the song we wrote first, Believe in the Demon, which was the second single we just released, I think that one's going on, 2.5 years from when the initial idea came out. So, over the last 2 to 3 years, I would say that stuff's been in process.
And I noticed that you didn't include any of the songs off your last EP, something you've done in the past. Was that an attempt to make a particular break from the material at that time?
I kind of wanted to. we did that with Sex Switch and Victim of Circumstance. Like we actually had a Sex Switch 7-inch, and then we released those songs. We recorded them on Apocalypse Moon. We talked about it, but there was, you know, enough of a space between when Night Terror came out and when we were thinking of releasing Maniacal. And, you know, the band had changed and you know, even the sound to some extent. And so, you know, we thought we'd just let those 3 songs off the EP kind of have their own place. And especially with the digital age where they're still available online and people may not be buying the whole disc, we thought it made more sense to just, you know, give them some brand new content and not kind of duplicate things we'd already done. Also, you know, there's a cost for mixing and production and personnel and whatnot. So, you know, you're recording 2 extra songs. That's either money you could spend to record 2 new songs or to put into publicity or videos or other things, or new guitars or beer.
Hey, as a fan, I'm happy to get more new songs. That's awesome. Now, you all have already released a couple of lyric videos from the album for the songs Breakpoint and Believe in the Demon. Tell us a little bit about those 2 tracks.
So Breakpoint, well, first off, I'll start, maybe some of the listeners aren't aware, but I've actually, I've stepped away from the band for the time being. The others, of course, have my blessing to continue. I love those guys with all my heart, and, you know, I hope they keep things going. So Breakpoint's kind of, you know, an expression of some of that turmoil of me knowing that, like, you know, I had to step away for reasons, and kind of, you know, Amanda had some thoughts going on, and so we were able to put that into song. And I think what's amazing, you know, that's one of my favorite songs we've ever written. I think it captures perfectly kind of the timeline of the band, or the current, you know, age of the band, and with me, you know, departing and some of the sentiments around that. I think, you know, that's what that song's an expression of. It. Of course, it could be applied to, you know, anybody's individual experiences. I mean, you all kind of reach a point where you have to move on from things, or, you know, life throws a curveball your way, where you have to, you know, make changes that, or sacrifice, right, to kind of preserve yourself, or to ensure that, like, you're in the best position for the future. And so, you know, that's what that song's about, basically. Believe in the Demon is sort of about mental illness and, like, the prevalence of it in society, and you know, like, everyone's got some kind of voice in their head, you know, whether good or bad. There's, you know, you're something on your conscience, or you know, you're split at a fork in the road to make an important decision, and one side of you wants to make the bad decision, the other side wants to make, you know, the good decision, and so, you know, those things can, you know, pull at people's heartstrings and you know, drag them into dark places, or to positive places, right? I mean, the voice in your head can be a good thing too. So at least that's what I gathered from Amanda working on it. That was kind of what when we discussed, you know, what is that song about? That was sort of what she mentioned.
And can you
again, it's another.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
go ahead. Yeah, I was just saying, like, you know, when we try to write music, we try to take personal experience and personal expressions, and hopefully the fans relate to the lyrics. Like, we're really, when we write music, we want the fans to relate to the lyrics. We think, you know, the lyrics are important, and that people can, you know, listen to them and maybe think of how they apply to their own individual experiences.
Well, I've had a chance to hear those 2 songs plus a couple of other tracks off Maniacal. As someone who's listened to your entire back catalog, if anything, it seems to me the band is moving in an even heavier, more aggressive direction musically. Is that a fair statement, or, you know, where do you think the band is heading with this new album?
Yeah, I think some of the feedback, you know, we've discussed and given each other was that, you know, we wanted to go heavier, but still keep some of the catchy sensibilities and the uniqueness of the sound. And so, you know, part of it too is the production is a little bit heavier. We took more time up front to make sure we had the tones we wanted, and guitar configurations, and there was a lot more pre-production that went into this album as well, with the goal of having it, translate into bigger, louder, heavier sounds. So, it's just the ebb and flow of being in a band. This album got a little bit, heavier, but who's to say the next one won't, just be full of ballads or something, right?
Or an acoustic, perhaps.
Yeah, or just, re-record the first album even. I don't think we have a single copy of that one left.
Well, you mentioned...
I don't think the masters even exist for that one.
You mentioned Amanda, and let's talk a bit about the rest of the band. Your fellow guitarist is John Satterley. What does he bring to the table as an artist, and how has his style complemented your own in this album?
Yeah, so John's from a band called Skepsis. He's recently kind of reincarnated that band as well, and he's an amazing guitar player. One of the tightest, picking hands I've ever seen. It's hard to keep up with it. It's just so in precise time, and he thinks music very linear. I tend to think in blocks and more in 4/4 and 6/8 and stuff, but he thinks music, in a very linear way, which, when I'm writing, keeps me on my toes, because he might hear something, totally different that'll take the song down a new exciting path. And, I can always write a guitar solo if there's a dual solo section. I know, before he even gets into it, that he's going to write the perfect complementary part to that. I can't say enough about the guy. He's a solid human, amazing guitar player, really positive aspect to the band. He's always just in a good mood, and, one of those guys that, every band needs, to be honest. I can't say enough about him. His playing, Skepsis, I'm not playing in Skepsis anymore either. I ended up with elbow tendonitis from it. As I age, I can't play the technical metal as well as I used to without getting some pain in my arms. So, he'll write a riff that'll cause your arm to explode. And, he's just a phenomenal guitar player. It's kind of interesting too, because it highlights the difference in generation. He's, early 30s. I'm late 30s. I grew up on, the 80s scene, a little bit more, whereas he was playing Necrophagist and Children of Bodom riffs when he was 16. So he had that, technical ability up front. And then, our generation wasn't recording in Pro Tools, whereas his was the forefront of GarageBand and understanding where the click relates to the grid and being able to put your playing under a microscope at such a young age, right? And now you hear him, and he's just such a stellar player. I've been, blessed to have someone like that by my side for so many years,
And on vocals, you have Amanda Kiernan. What does it do for a band to have a vocalist who can both sing the cleans and go down in the death metal growls as well?
Oh, it's great, because it doesn't put a limit on anything. You can, switch from, really catchy, hooky, clean chorus just right to gutturals. And having that option is awesome as a songwriter for me, because I don't have to, hold back anywhere. And there's always two sides to every coin. If you don't like a part screamed, you can say, hey, sing it clean. It's not an issue to get takes. So, her voice has matured a lot. It's great to see. I've watched her, since she was 17, and she's, got this multi-dimensional approach now, and really proud of her.
And then your rhythm section?
Yeah, so Jonathan Webster, who's now drumming in Stryker, he joined the band around a year and a half ago, I guess. And so he did the drums on the album. And his old roommate and best friend and bass player in Tyler Dory Trio, which is another amazing band to check out if prog heads out there. Tyler Dory Trio is up top, right? So Slava Fedosenko did the bass on it. I thought it would just be a natural thing to have, two guys that have played together for so long, and, just as a rhythm foundation, for this whole album. And it seemed to have turned out really good. The sound is great. I'm really digging where the rhythm section is on this album.
Yeah, I thought if anything, it was maybe even a little tighter than you've had on past albums, just a little more consistent on that rhythm.
Yeah, for sure. And, that's a function, again, of a previous question. When you start watching the big bands and how they sound live and why they sound the way they sound live. And, it comes down to making sure every note is deliberate, right? It's not so much that you got to hold back from the riff. It's just, maybe there's some extra noise in between notes that doesn't need to be there, or even simplifying. I mean, as metal guitar players, we just want to shred, 24/7, 30-second notes, like as fast and as aggressive as possible at all times. And, sometimes just by adding space, you can, change an entire part. And I think that comes with, maturing as a songwriter as well. You start to listen for that space in between notes a little more.
So, beginning to wrap up with you, Simon, what are the band's plans leading up to the release of Maniacal, and do you have plans to have an album release show? So, yeah, that question's come up a bit. You can get Maniacal now on our Bandcamp. I've put it up. And as far as the CD release show moving forward, if that happens, that'd be up to the guys. They have my blessing to do that and continue on. I can't be a part of it for the time being. But there's some exciting news because Killer Metal Records is going to release this version possibly on vinyl as well. And there'll be a formal European package with the lyrics and proper jewel case, whereas what I had done on a limited edition run was just 100 in a sleeve, just so I could send them out to friends and family. And, a couple of our tighter fans, emailed me about them immediately, and they've since, basically all sold. But, there's going to be a formal, worldwide distribution type thing coming soon. So, that might correlate with the release party, the timing of that, because then, the band would be aligned to go on tour potentially. Well, that's killer. Again, great material.
Yeah, so much is up in the air. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
When the founding member walks away, it makes things tough, right? There's a lot that's got to go into, a handoff if they want to continue. And, if the decision's made that the band is just going to cement its, legacy where it is, then, I think that's okay too.
So kind of what are your thoughts looking back on that legacy? If at the time you founded the Order of Chaos, you had been able to look in the looking glass and see all that you'd accomplished with these EPs, the full-length releases, the tours, what would your thoughts have been? Do you consider it a success in hindsight?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a few months now to really reflect on things, and I'm really proud, met some of the most amazing people through the process and got to shred with great musicians, and, it opened up some other opportunities for me. I think the one thing, if I had a regret of it all, this is probably the best advice I never took, was, because I'm really focused on the destination. I want to make sure the steps are in place and really work hard and practice my playing all the time, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you kind of lose focus, of the ride. So maybe to focus more on the journey and less on, the destination, because, there is no destination. It's music, it's, touring, it can go on forever. That's probably something in hindsight I wish I'd focused more on, just enjoying the small moments. But, I've so much to be proud about, and proud of everyone involved, and super grateful for anybody who's been a part of the Order of Chaos over the years. And it's one of those things it's a huge part of my life, and nothing but positive feelings about it moving forward.
Well, I'm a huge fan of all that you've done, and so if you don't mind, remind our listeners what the best way is to purchase music and merchandise from the Order of Chaos.
So yeah, not Spotify at 7/1 millionth of a cent per play or whatever. I mean, I'm just happy if people listen to it. So whatever's most convenient for you, that's where you should get it. I think more of the money goes to the band when you buy albums directly, either through the online store at Big Cartel or Bandcamp. Is easy because there's a fee that's charged and that's it, and the money ends up in the band account. So. Of course, coming out to the shows is a good thing too. Obviously buy the merch there, but for the new album Maniacal, I'd say Bandcamp is the best bet at this point, and then look on the social medias for a future release on Killer Metal Records, which I think it's in process right now, so it could be out in a few months potentially.
Well, I encourage metal fans to do just that. The Order of Chaos is an amazing band. You guys have put out such a great back catalog, and man, if this is your legacy, it's one to be proud of. I'm a huge fan, and you have definitely made your mark over the past decade plus. Simon, it's been a real honor to speak with you, and best of luck to you in the future.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the kind words. And thanks to all the listeners out there and everyone for their support.